It looked like it was news, a slow weekend of news, a slow news weekend, whatever the case. My English failing me for a second there. But the early hours of this morning, or make that last night, 10 p.m., River State, which is almost always in the news for political reasons, got us talking once again. So much drama between 10 p.m. last night and 20 minutes past 6 o'clock at this hour. It's been so much coming from one, if not Nigeria's richest state. And of course, issues concerning the judgment from Nigeria's apex court, the Supreme Court, will still get us talking on the show, even as the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, at a press conference earlier today, talked about a lot of things and, of course, gave his own thoughts about the judgment from the apex court. This is how I welcome you to today's edition of the Newsroom. My name is Ufuoma Egbamuno. It's a pleasure to be here and, of course, talk about everything that has gone on in the past 7 days or thereabouts. Let me quickly just run through some of the big stories that made the rounds in the course of the last 7 days. We had the implementation of the student loan initiative. We were told it will commence in January 2024. And of course, right here in Lagos, we saw a court sentencing Dr. Femi Olaleye to life in prison for defiling his wife's niece. We also saw INEC deleting Timipre Silva, one-time minister, one-time governor, and of course he's running mate from the Bayelsa governorship candidates list. And we saw the Senate saying they plan to probe the money spent on refineries maintenance since 2010. Good luck to them on that. Also, we saw the Senate, one after the other, each member coming on air to defend the purchase of 360 sports utility vehicles for their members. Ufuoma never seafood chop today. Anyway, Nigeria also ranked 120th out of the 142 countries in terms of adherence to the rule of law. I would think we should be way below, but hey, before somebody accuses me of not being patriotic, let me just leave that at that. President Bola Tinubu also presented the 2024 budget to the National Assembly, and he approved 18 billion naira life assurance benefits for families of fallen heroes. Absolutely amazing. You honestly sometimes do not have an idea what the families of military men or security operatives have to go through when they lose their lives, and of course their families have to depend on scraps because most times they are the breadwinners. And of course, there was jubilation in the camp of President Tinubu and the APC after the Supreme Court affirmed his election, even as the opposition PDP and Labour Party kicked against that ruling. Well, there's absolutely also no way I'll forget the story from River State, where the police paraded Damian Okoligwe for the alleged murder of his girlfriend, Justina Otwene. And on a lighter note, for all of you sports betting people, well, it was a weekend of crying after Benfica decided to. I'm laughing. I know it's not funny. Benfica did a lot of damage. It's news, yeah? Because quite a number of you, possibly listening to Nigeria Info right now, possibly had your betting tickets caught by a team that ordinarily should have won their game against a newly promoted side. I saw people's tweets, people swearing for Barcelona, as if those swears would work. But, you know, Nigerians not particularly happy. Okay, enough of all the silly things. Let's get into the thick of the action. Today, people, we will talk about two issues, and I have my guests lined up. First off, we will talk about the Supreme Court judgment, because it was arguably the biggest story from last week. But today, the presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, says that even though the position of the Supreme Court is final, that it left a lot of questions unanswered. He also accused two critical institutions, the judiciary and INEC, of supporting what he calls identity theft, impersonation, forgery of certificates, and perjury. And he says he's not going anywhere. Well, that means he's not going to Dubai again. Okay, I did not see that. Pardon me if you heard that. I didn't say anything. he also made some recommendations, some good recommendations, I would think. But then again, the cynic in me would ask, well, you were vice president for 8 years. You've been part of government for a number of years. Well, in his days, he said he was part of the Constitutional Conference in 1995 that, talked about a few of the reforms. But how far, did he go as vice president to ensure we saw these reforms? Or is it a question of when you're on the other side of it, you start complaining? Anyway, we also saw Justice Dattijo's speech where he was quite critical of his own constituency and talked about how the powers of the CGN, Chief Justice of the country, is quite enormous and that something needs to be done about it. All of that will get us on the show, even as I think I have guests already. There's a former vice president of the Nigeria Bar Association, a regular on the newsroom, and somebody I can take time to sometimes call off the records and have banter with him, ask some of these constitutional questions or legal questions, and you tell me you need to next year. Talking about Monday, very good evening to you, sir. Welcome to the newsroom. Hello. Okay. My producer and the phone line started acting up again. I told you guys that we have to talk about. There's no way we're not going to talk about the drama in River State, and I have a guest lined up. We'll get to that in a bit, but let's try and get through to my first guest, because there's a whole lot I would love to ask him concerns judicial issues. Well, the former Justice Dattijo said something. He said the present structure of the judiciary gives too much power to the CGN, who usually takes decisions without consulting other justices. He also alleged that to fill the vacant slot of Southeast on the Apex Court bench is deliberate. Well, I'll tell you more about what that justice actually said. Even as I welcome Mr. Monday, or is it Dr. Monday, on the newsroom, a regular of the show. A very good evening to you, sir. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Actually, it's nothing. So the voice now sounds like a woman, like you always use.
Sounds like a woman.
Well, I'm very well. In my almost how many years on radio? I started with TV. In my years on radio, yeah. I think I get that almost every time. That's right. Is it for my man or you?
That's right. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Mr. Obani. Quickly, let me start by asking you first things first, because we have limited time. Your reaction to the judgment of the Supreme Court from last week?
The judgment, the reason for the judgment were even the ratio is called ratio decidendi, were explicitly given by the man who preceded, and that's the Honorable Justice Inya Okoro. Some of the things he said, it's difficult to fault them. This is the apex court. Whatever they have laid down as their judgment becomes a precedent. And you can't appeal to that particular judgment elsewhere, unless probably another time you have similar facts, you can ask them to rule themselves. They can't depart on their former judgment. For now, all the judgment, the rulings, and all the ratios they have established will remain the law until set aside by the same Supreme Court in a different matter, certainly not in this same matter. So that is what I want to say. I have looked at the judgment. I'm told we have to abide by it and agree with it totally. There is nothing we can argue about. Let me say a bit about the forgery. Atiku was alleging forgery, that he submitted a forged document.
Yeah.
One and first thing you have to do is that you have alleged crime, so the level of is no longer going to be on balance of probabilities. It's going to be proved beyond reasonable doubt. Now, you want to prove that with fresh evidence you have obtained the university, which was obtained after the judgment of the lower court. So the Supreme Court have to take into account how many days or how many months within which we have disposed of this at the lower court, and then ask what the usefulness of this fresh evidence. If the lower court's jurisdiction has expired, they cannot in any way take in that matter anymore. And if you bring before the Supreme Court don't evaluate oral evidence or witness evidence, because they do review judgment of the lower court. So of what purpose would that evidence now admitted be? The Supreme Court even allow cross-examination of the witnesses that may hardly should have been summoned in order to come and differentiate whatever document they have tendered. So that was the issue. And then secondly, in their formulation of issues for determination, the issue of forgery was never there. He was never there. So on what basis would the Supreme Court now decide the issue of forgery? So that was completely omitted. And it says so that there was no issue for determination of forgery. It was not even an issue for notice of appeal. It wasn't there, grounds of appeal. So these are some of the issues that were there that actually caused the technical knockout that made that issue of forgery and all the effort that has been put in. It came to naught, at the end of it. That is what I want to say with regards to then on the issue of a conviction. That is the obese that this man was a convict of a drug offense. The court found that what happened with a drug offense was that it was a property that was forfeited, and there was no conviction of the individual. There has to be conviction of that individual. But when a property is forfeited, the court held that there wasn't conviction on the person that was alleged to have been involved in that. Again, that was also the reason why that particular leg of this thing was not sustainable. There were other issues. Well, the FCT Abuja, they say it doesn't have any special status. We have said several times that when you use the word "and," it's unambiguous and should be given its literal meaning. But the Supreme Court thinks otherwise and said no, that Abuja has no special status. So we have to abide by that decision of the Supreme Court until maybe it will be set aside. But for now, that is the judgment of the Supreme Court.
Okay. Unfortunately, we do. I thought that this was going to be very honest, the plan was to have this conversation, about legal issues as our only conversation for today. So we'll probably have about 30 minutes or thereabout. Then the explosion at the River State House of Assembly happened last night, and all the drama that we have seen. So that puts a bit of limit, on our conversation for today. Right. But I would like to ask, between you and I thought that the Supreme Court was well within their rights to make the decisions that they made. It was quite explicit. Even if I don't even have any legal background, but right. The explanations given by the justices, you could literally see that, okay, even if we want to admit this thing, it's not even in your grounds for appeal. So why would we do it? But some would argue that, and I think Atiku Abubakar actually highlighted it today in his press conference, that the Apex Court was, using technicalities and left the main issue, which is, the allegations of forgery. What do you say to that? The question of technicalities.
When you use the word, you see, we're now mixing up issues.
Okay.
When the technicality comes, people think, he is following technicality instead of the substance of the law. In the issue of technicality, if you do not formulate issue for forgery in appeal, there is no way, no court.
So it's like saying in layman terms, it's like saying 4 times 0 is 0.
There's no, if you don't mention, the court doesn't give any person anything you don't ask for. It's not even like Christmas. If I come to court now and I did not make any demand from the court can never in any way dash you. In the normal language we use in Nigeria, dash you anything.
Was that a mistake from the PDP, or was there a technical ground why they couldn't do it?
I don't know why, because I looked at the issues for determination on forgery was not there. So what would the court now decide? Because it is issues for determination that the court will decide on. When you file notice of appeal, let me just say how it works in a layman's language. If you file notice of appeal, you have grounds of appeal. From the grounds of appeal, you formulate issues for determination. You know what you're telling the court, this is from your ground. These are the issues you want the court to decide. Now, if you now allege forgery, that you submitted forged document, and you never bring that issue of forgery as an issue for the Supreme Court to determine, how will the court now decide it? How can the court even discuss it? Because it's not part of your issue. It's not part of your grounds.
Okay. All right. Quickly, let's talk about this issue about retiring Justice Dattijo. He made some very, very, pertinent points in his valedictory presentation. He said that the present structure of the judiciary gives too much power to the CJN. He also alleged that the refusal to fill the vacant slot of Southeast on the Apex Court is deliberate. His words, that 2 years and 7 months after the demise of Honorable Justice Nweze, the justice from the Southeast, that there's no replacement. He also noted that upon his own retirement, the North Central Zone will not have any representation on the Supreme Court. And he says that appropriate steps should be taken. Let's quickly talk about this.
Now, let me say this. It's not as if it is a new thing. It's not as if those powers is mentioned in none were given to the CJN yesterday.
True.
Those powers have been there all along. The point is that everyone has said, look, why don't we probably limit the powers of the CJN and probably make it a bit flexible and ensure that there is issue of contacting some of his colleagues in decision making. It's not as if he was referring to the present man that is there. It's been like that. It has been the position of the law that the CJN is very powerful in making appointment to most of the agencies that are that are created by law. It's been there. So why he's saying this now? Because clearly he's on his way out, and he feels that we should be able to look at those anomalies and correct them. And I believe that if a serious government wants to correct them, some of the things he said, especially appointment. Can you imagine that the Supreme Court has a maximum number of 21? Never in the history have we ever had that maximum. I don't know. To my knowledge, I don't know. Within my own living memory, I don't know when we have had 21 justices of the Supreme Court. Why are you been saying that 21 is not enough to address
all the number of issues?
If you see the number of cases pending before the Supreme Court, there are thousands. And we have only these few justices, that sit. Most times they take only 2 or 3 cases in a day because of the volume of work they have to do. So we cannot continue like this. I have suggested what Singapore did. Singapore had a similar situation. They now recruited lawyers from the bar and asked them to come over to the bench in order to actually clear the backlog. Now, if you finish, you want to remain in the bench, fine. If you want to go back to your practice, and that's what they did. If you go to Singapore today, they will have one of the best judicial systems. The same thing with Kenya. Some of these countries in the African continent, they've gone far ahead of us. How can you have a case as far back as 2003, the date 2003 is still pending before the Supreme Court?
That's madness. Now, 20 years.
I am more than 20 years. There was one that was, it's more than 20 years. There was a case of mine that was just here, it was 2013, and it was just 2023. I was even considered very lucky to have a date given to me for a matter that was filed since 2013.
Wow. What a wow.
Yeah, 2013. I'm talking about 2003. I think it's up to 30 years now. I don't know.
2003 is 20 years, actually.
It's 20 years?
Yes.
Okay, 20. Okay, mine is 2000. Oh, yes, that's true. You're correct. Now, what we're saying is that if you have a matter that started from the lower court, maybe take you average of 7-8 years, and then you come to Court of Appeal, it takes another average of 10 years. And then you now in Supreme Court, you are in 20 years. So calculate 7 plus 10, 17 plus 20. It takes you average of 30-something years to resolve an issue. How would you feel? Some of them would have died.
Possibly.
Some of those contenders would have died.
Possibly.
If it is a commercial transaction, I have one where they froze account of my client on an ex parte order. We are at the Court of Appeal, as I speak to you since last year. The bank, the company cannot operate. They have no access to their funds in order to pay salary to workers because of the order of the court. Now, for over a year plus, we have not gotten a date at the Court of Appeal in order to resolve the issue. So how would that company survive? The company is going down already. So can you continue to operate such a system? It is absolutely wrong.
Okay.
We have to do something with our judiciary, both at the Federal High Court, at the State High Court, at the Court of Appeal, and most importantly at the Supreme Court. I have suggested it, that we can regionalize our Supreme Court.
All right, Mr.
Not
Bani.
every matter should come to Supreme Court.
I agree.
We can make them to end at the Supreme Court at the regional level. We can do that. Let's talk another day, Ufuoma.
Yes,
let's have a full 30
we
minutes
definitely
to talk about
will,
judiciary.
or
Yes,
possibly any of my other colleagues, might get through this. But before I let you go, I have to ask you about the drama in Rivers State. First things first, I'll need you to educate the listener. Can the executive suspend the chief judge of the state?
It cannot, sir.
Why?
It cannot, because it's only through a proper order. Three arms are involved in removing a chief judge. The State House of Assembly, they say have to. Then somebody has to report, and then you now remove. Right?
So because of the drama, yeah.
I'm in a meeting now.
Oh, okay.
I'll call you back.
All right then. All right. Thank you, Mr. Ubani. Lagos. That was former Vice President of the Nigeria Bar Association, Dr. Monday Ubani. I wanted to actually, ask him about because he did mention that it's the State House of Assembly that can do that. But of course, you all know, or if in case you do not know, from the drama, we now have two factions of the House of Assembly. There's the faction that has 24 members that sat earlier in the day and removed the House leader. And then there's another faction of at least 5 members who also sat later in the day and announced that the House leader is now the new speaker. And one of the first things the House leader, who claims now to be the new speaker of the House, did was, of course, to say the chief judge of the state, Mr. Madi, has been is it suspended or removed now? I'm trying to get the correct word. But that leads me into topic number 2. River State, my River State of drama. Yes, I'm an in-law. My wife is from River State. I lived and worked in River State for almost 7 years. And trust me, there's nothing happening today that comes to me as a surprise. I was right there in the thick of the action when this same scenario or something similar played out just 10 years ago, 2013. And all the drama. And of course, we're being joined by Mr. China Acheru, who's a journalist. He's a friend of the house. He's our colleague. He's the program manager of our sister station, Wazobia FM in Port Harcourt. He's also a very good political analyst who understands all the political drama in River State. A very good evening to you, sir. Welcome to the newsroom. Again, the phone lines. Okay, all right. While my producer Emmanuel Onwoka is trying to ensure that we get this right on track, let me just let you know what has been going down. We hear that, of course, that the sacked lawmakers got some support and suspended 24 of the 32 lawmakers that make up the River State House of Assembly. So the drama is now that the other 8 persons sat and suspended their 24 colleagues, meaning that from there, what that means is that this only has 8 members and they can form a quorum. That's what that sack actually, or suspension actually means. And I'm trying not to laugh, but if it's funny and sad at the same time, because at the heart of all of this, the question would be, what happens to the average riversman? Does this fight actually concern them? Some say it's the hand of Jacob, or is it, how did they put that again? The hand of Jacob, whatever of Esau. Some have alleged that this power tussle between the erstwhile governor, who's presently the minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, and his hand-picked successor, Sim Fubara. Well, like I did say, it started last night. The assembly complex was, some say bombed, but I don't think so. So explosive. We wait for the investigation from the police to confirm that. And of course, a part of the house was destroyed. And early this morning, as early as 7:30, 24 lawmakers were already at the house, a section of the house, sat and removed the house leader. And of course, it has been speculated that the house leader is in the camp of the governor. It looks like we've gotten our guest. Hello, Mr. China, are you there? Oh my goodness. I honestly have no idea why the phone lines today are deciding to act up. Well, we still got about 11 minutes or so. Hopefully we can get through to of course our guest, and hopefully have this conversation, because I really need to get into the nitty-gritty of what actually the powers at play, what's going down. Finally, we've gotten him. A very good evening to you, Mr. China.
Good evening.
Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Can you hear me? I'm struggling to hear you.
Good evening.
Okay. Mr. Cheru, welcome to the newsroom. Quickly, can you tell us where the state of things actually are right now in Port Harcourt as regards the drama? Oh dearie me. Uh, sometimes when you're trying to do these live shows, all of this drama can actually happen. But we'll keep trying. We'll still have 10 minutes. And let's see if one way or the other we can get through to him. Okay, it does look like I've been able to get through to him. So to a large extent, let's just have this conversation. A very good evening to you, Mr. Acheru. It's been difficult getting to, but thankfully we have right now. Welcome to the newsroom.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me very well?
I can hear you very well.
Okay, quickly, what's the stuff, the drama that right now that we've seen in Port Harcourt or River State since last night? Where are we right now?
Yeah, right now, or at least after 15 minutes ago, there was a security meeting going on at Government House, and we had the governor there, His Excellency Siminala Ufuoma, meeting with security chief. I'm aware there are also party elders in that meeting and other political stakeholders. And while waiting for that meeting to end, we know that as soon as the meeting ends, there will be a briefing to know what the latest is. But between last night and now, as we said, there was a fire outbreak at the assembly complex. Sometimes it was a bomb blast, something fire outbreak, but it destroyed part of the assembly complex. And later that night, we got information that the chief of staff had been relieved of his duty, as well as the CEO at the Government House had been relieved of his duty too. Then we saw, impeachment proceedings, first against the leader of the House Assembly, then the suspension of the same leader of the House, that is the chair here, as well as 3 others from the House Assembly, by 24 members of the House Assembly. We got that information and we saw the video. Then shortly after, we also heard that the other 8 members of the House of Assembly have impeached the Speaker, Martin Amehule, and have installed Edison here, the majority leader, as Speaker. So we've heard all of that, but that is the confusion in River State. But until the governor comes out of the security meeting, we won't be able to say what exactly is going on. So that's where we are now, Ufuoma.
Have you been able to speak to any of the legislators, maybe off the records? Has any of them actually come out to say anything or address the press?
No. Apart from the various press statements from the 24 and from the 8th, none has spoken individually. So that's where we are right now. But we know that as soon as the security meeting is over, probably in a few minutes, an hour, it has been on for a while right now, we'll get a better picture. But from what we know, from what the chief of staff is not same as the CSO to the Government House, and of course the commandant at the Government House. Of course, we saw this morning the House leader, which is Eddie here, was removed alongside 3 other members, the assemblyman from Opobon Koro, from Bonny, and from the West. We are all suspended. And we also know that 24 members of the House started impeachment proceedings against the governor, where a document or a petition signed by 24 of them, was brought forward to the Speaker, which they said they will hand over to the governor and then, of course, the Chief Judge. That we know for now. But by the time that meeting is over, we'll get the clearer picture of what's going on.
Talking about the Chief Judge, there are also reports that the other members have removed the Chief Judge and authorized the governor to appoint an acting one. There are also reports that the 23 local government areas had their chairman sacked. Also hear that the governor has dissolved his state executive council. Can you confirm any of these?
We also heard all of those, right? But talking of confirmation, no. Maybe those are speculations, right? Those are speculations. We heard about the chief judge being removed. We heard about the Federal Government chairman removed. We heard about the executive council being dissolved too. But for now, I'll try to be safe and say it's what it is hearsay. until an official statement signed by the same media of the government house, or we actually see the governor in an address, we'll take those as speculation. So, yes, we heard them from here, but no comment on those things here, former.
Okay, let's talk about the former governor of Rivers State, because there's absolutely no way we are not going to talk about him. We have alleged that he is the brain behind all of this chaos, because I think that's the best way to explain it. How does he come into the picture? I'm talking Nyesom Wike, by the way.
Like you said, it's alleged that he's the brain behind, but maybe just an allegation. Now, I know that the former governor has refused to speak about it, even when a few journalists in Abuja met with him today, he refused to speak about it. Now, but the word on the streets in and around River State is that the Speaker of the House, the speakers at this morning, that is, Martins Amehule, is loyal to the governor. The word on the street is that it is a plot by the former governor, that is, to remove the present governor. But like I said about the removal of the 22 local government chairmen and all of that stuff, it's word on the street. There is nothing that anybody can hold on to say, yes, it's true. So people believe there is a fight for supremacy between the immediate past governor, Nyesom Wike, and the current governor, Simfu Bada. That's the belief on the street. Right? Is there proof of it? Maybe, maybe not. Yeah, that's what we all believe. Right? But no one can actually hold on to it. Before Simfu Bada came in as governor, also the word on the street was that the former governor, Nyesom Wike, brought in someone that will be loyal to him. And it's looking like the loyalty is in doubt. That is the word on the street. But again, it's only what it is, word on the street.
Quickly, as we have not so much time, I have to ask you this. Some have alleged that there could also be some, because almost everything in Nigeria, one way or the other, we bring in ethnicity into it. Some have alleged that there's a possibility of an ethnic coloration, knowing that River State has got different tribes, so to speak, that it's a fight between upland and river and Ikwere versus the just speaking part of the state. Could you enlighten us on any of this, if it is true? Quickly, in a minute.
Well, the Ikweres and the Jos are not the only ethnic groups. Yes, they are the major ethnic groups. We have the Ikweres, we have the Jos, we have the Ogonis, we have the Oba, lots of them. I saw...
How did you forget Eche, my in-laws?
I'm sorry about that, forgive me. We saw a crowd at government house today, showing loyalty to the governor. And a lot of people in that house were of the Ijo extraction based on some words we are using and some slogans we are chanting. So, naturally, things like this take an ethnic dimension. And it's not out of place for this one to take that same ethnic dimension. So, probably, the judge will say, the Ikweres have been in governance for 16 years. Now it's our turn. Let us breathe. So, it's possible that's going on right now. So, it could be the judge that's thinking that, okay, this is our fight. Maybe. And it won't be out of place for them to do that. So you may not be wrong if you say it has taken an ethnic coloration. That's what is expected in this country. Religion, ethnicity are two key things that we hold on to.
All right, Mr. Cheru, thank you very much for the insight you've given us on the newsroom this evening. I appreciate.
The pleasure is mine.
All right, that's of course journalist and my colleague, the program manager of Wazobia FM Port Harcourt, Mr. China Acheru, giving us a sense of what has been going, at least a sense of it, what has been going on. But of course, this is a developing story. Trust us on different news coverages over the next couple of days to keep you updated on this. And of course, this is also my cue to say special shout out to my colleagues, the newsroom team of Cool Wazobia Info Port Harcourt. It's been back-to-back updates coming from my colleagues over there. The team led by Choma Izenwafo, and of course all of the reporters there have done an amazing job to keep us updated, and that's why we in Lagos are able to tell you everything that is currently happening there. On behalf of my producers today, Sam, did I say Sam? My apologies, Emmanuel Onwuka, and of course, Precious Nena Okon. Thank you for the great job you've done today. A special birthday shout out to Ogundike Adeshewe. who is a favorite listener of Nigeria Info. It's her birthday today. Happy birthday to you. Or is it? No, actually, it's tomorrow, 31st. My bad. But anyway, happy birthday to you. And I hope, it's the beginning of great things. Emmanuel, is it your birthday? Emmanuel is giving me grief that I'm wishing someone birthday on his program. Last time I checked, now me they present the program today. Anyway, I started the show somehow with some lamentations about Benfica. I'm going to end with lamentations about Benfica. They do a strong thing over the weekend. But anyway, guys, I'll see you hopefully in 2 weeks' time. I'll be on a bit of a break in the next couple of days. I'll be back in at least 2 weeks' time. Until then, stay safe. Femi and the gang will be in the building in about 6 minutes' time.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens.